All right, folks. Welcome to another stream space of Lakers Detailed. Apologize for the delay. We originally had this scheduled for 8:30, but Raj and I are multitasking right now. We are looking at our Twitter feeds as everybody melts down. Well, at least one section of Twitter melts down about Draymond being suspended, and then both me and him have one eyeball on this Suns Clippers game, which is very close right now. And so we were a little delayed in getting this sort of set up or just kind of launching this. We figured we'd give everybody time to watch. But as always, we appreciate all the folks that support the pod feed, support the YouTube live stream. If you'd like to chat with us, you can always switch to the YouTube live stream and send in your messages and we'll just read them in the space and we'll read them on the stream. If not, you're always welcome to just listen to us in the space. And this space is recorded, so it will be on the stream. So as always, we appreciate people taking the time to listen to us talk about Lakers basketball. But Raj, we have some news that's worth discussing today that just broke very recently. Shams Charania just tweeted out that Draymond is suspended for Game 3. He had a Hulk Hogan-esque, WWE-esque stomp on Sabonis's chest last game after they got tangled up. And it seems like, based on the explanation that's been given, it's because, he has a history of stuff like this sort of happening, famously kicking people in the groin multiple times, then the thing in the finals with him getting suspended in the finals and stuff like that. So he's a repeat offender, and so he got suspended this game. So before we get into the Lakers stuff and the adjustments we have, I hope you're doing well since we last spoke. Lakers had a great game.
Yep.
But Draymond suspended, and the Kings are up 2-0, and this game is going to Golden State. So what are your thoughts about like the decision and everything that's just like kind of gone down with that news?
Man, first of all, yes, it's nice to be talking after a Laker win. 2 days off, been a relaxing week, been able to enjoy. There's nothing better like when your team wins and you can just enjoy playoff basketball, like with no real stakes in it. You could just enjoy the physicality. But yeah, Draymond Green ejected. I mean, sorry, not ejected, suspended. I didn't think he would be, and then Shams, his own report this morning was it was unlikely he'd be suspended, but I mean, you look at the history that he has. You mentioned one of them. I think also like the kick to Steven Adams back in 2016. Like there's just a multitude of events that have happened, and then also egging on the Sacramento crowd while they check on Sabonis, who he just stomped on. Like that's just a bad look for the league. Adam Silver was in the building for that. I'm surprised, and Vinay, I think this turns the series. We were one of the few people who were like, you need to respect Sacramento. Like this is a team that was the 3 seed for a reason. It was a ridiculous paced team with a star and Fox and get to where he wants. And now they're up 2-0. They haven't even really shot well. And now you lose Draymond Green, who was really the main guy on Sabonis along with Kevon Looney. And their back line is really tough. Who's their backup power forward and center? I'm not even sure. Anthony Lamb, I didn't even play, I think, in that game. So
Yeah.
Jonathan Kuminga is the guy you go to, and that's really tough against a Kings team that feels really confident. Kind of look the guy in the eye, right? Like you could tell in that first game they were a little bit shell shocked, but they picked it up. They eventually won that one. And in game 2, I thought they were game for the whole time. I thought they were ready. And this Draymond suspension throws a wrinkle into all this. It could have an impact not on this game, but also this summer with extensions looming. So this is a big thing, Vinay. I think the Draymond suspension is huge. You go down 3-0 to a team that you lost every night. Confidence drops every night.
Yeah, that I agree. Like I think it's. I mean, I'm surprised he got suspended. Like Draymond, we were just talking about it off air. Like Draymond has got one of the craziest leashes I've ever seen in my life when it comes to like a role player. Honestly, like he
Mhm.
genuinely does not like he says stuff and he's demonstrative in a way that I've never seen a player not get. And like when he gets them, when he gets like the first technical in the game, he almost it's almost a signal for him to increase because he's practically daring the refs to throw him out the game just because he is who he is and stuff like that. And so I I'm surprised he got suspended, but like the implications like go beyond, like it's almost a little selfish, I think, like for him
Yeah.
to do it. Like you said, like after he got, after they went to go review the play, like he's like, egging on the crowd. Like he did that against Memphis, if you remember, like when they got blown out, like he was egging on the crowd in Memphis. And like I'm one of those guys, I said it, we said it before when we were talking about Memphis, like the NBA doesn't really have bad guys, like, but sometimes bad guys make the game, like you need bad guys to have some personality. And Draymond tends to be like one of the bad guys sometimes. Like he's outspoken, but in a game or in a league where it's incredibly difficult to play defense, sometimes the defensive guys should be allowed to talk. Patrick Beverly historically is like that. Like a lot of these guys, talk a lot and whatnot. So it is what it is. But you're right. Like, who are they going to play? Jonathan Kaminga? Like Andrew Wiggins at the 4? They're going to go with Anthony Lamb? Like who? Like whoever they decide to go with, it's going to be not Draymond and not anybody as good defensively as Draymond. So, it's going to be very tough to like. I, they played him. You watched the game. Like they played him at center in that zone that started
Hmm.
sort of making a comeback before he got ejected. Like he's a really important piece to all of this, and I don't know. I mean the Warriors can still win just off the strength of them being like they can get super hot and just shoot the Kings out of it. But like
Be at home. Hmm.
the Kings are a good team, dude. They play probably faster than even the Warriors do. Like when I watch them sometimes. So I don't know. Like this
So
could be
here's
really bad.
so let me question you because I tweeted this during the game, but I think I'm not saying this led up to that, but that was a super physical game too, right? Like that they allowed a ton of contact, and I
Mhm.
thought Sabonis, you could tell like he was just getting beat up, his face is red, and Kings were dishing out some physicality too. I'm not gonna say it was on one side only,
Yeah,
um, but I thought like every time they let that inside contact go, Draymond and Looney and the Warriors up their notch just a bit, right? Their physicality went up just a notch. Like you could tell it was going on this like upward trajectory where like, oh, you're gonna let this go? This elbow is gonna be even harder this time. You're gonna let
yeah,
this go? Oh, this like push is gonna be double as hard. And I thought the like Sabonis being on the floor holding his head was kind of like a culmination of that. Like, dude, the refs are letting everything go. I gotta protect myself a bit. And then maybe I think even if he grabbed on his leg, obviously that's not an excuse to stomp on someone. But I've seen that,
that's
in
that's
places.
crazy. That I mean, just in general, this just that. Like I understand the logic behind what people are trying to argue, but it's like just think about what limits you're stretching this argument to say that what he was doing was like normal. Like that it's like the kicking motion. Remember when they said that the reason why Draymond was kicking people in the groin was because that was part of his shooting motion, but we've
Oh
never seen
man,
Draymond shoot the ball like that ever since. And so
no.
it just cracks me up that it does. But go ahead, sorry, I
Also,
interrupted.
like we were talking about this offline as well, like grabbing people's legs. That's something that happens in NBA
Yeah,
games, right? That's a occurrence that's happened before. What hasn't happened is a guy bending his knee, and you can like stop the photo of him like looking down and be like, "Oh, let me just plant my foot right here." And Sabonis definitely, accentuated it, screamed, like it was the worst thing ever. Brought his head back with the scream, like, "Oh
yeah,
no," but
that was crazy too. Yeah,
definitely stretch it
try
out.
to
But I
sell
mean,
it. Yeah,
that's what he's supposed to do, and obviously,
yeah,
get the ribs checked. Draymond also getting his ankle checked. Just this weird charade of like politics and playing the NBA, and now they've kind of ruled that he's out. And like you talked about, that's huge. Looney and Draymond already have such a huge workload. I mean,
yeah,
guarding the Kings just in himself, it almost looks like a mirror, right, Vinay? Like they throw all this motion
yeah.
offense right back at the Warriors, and like chasing Herder, Monk, Fox, that's hell. And you have to be up on all these screens. If you're not up, there's a swing pass to Harrison Barnes in the corner, and then it's Sabonis. You got to box out down low, and it's just that's a lot of work now to put on Looney and Kaminga and Jelani in the chat here. So Michael Green, which who I'm surprised can't
They may start him. Who knows? Yeah,
yeah, I'm surprised he can't play for them. But man, it's a huge loss for sure, and could definitely swing the series for a Kings team that is gaining more and more in confidence.
yeah. I think I definitely do think it's a much bigger loss than Yeah, like Warriors with fans, no matter how much they dislike Draymond and like the lack of offense that they get out of him, like he is a pretty integral part
Mhm.
of what they do, and he's an integral part of just like him and Looney are like amazing defensively, like just protecting the
Oh,
paint
yeah.
individually or whatever it may be. And so I'm going to be very curious to see what happens. And obviously the state of panic will increase significantly if they go down 3-0. But like I said, you never know. Like sometimes somebody manages to step up, or like Draymond not being on the floor, like may
Mhm.
make them better offensively. So now the Kings can't really help the off the roller the same way they did when it was Draymond being the roller, and their coverages change or something like that a little bit. So stuff like that is you never know how it can go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just blanketly assume they'll get worse because of it. There's always a trade off with having there. Um, before we get into the Lakers stuff, so we covered Draymond thing. That's probably the most important big piece of news that's come out recently. Was there anything from any of the games that you saw over the weekend that you wanted to kind of bring up?
Uh
Any player or any?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Obviously, we obviously touched on the Draymond part of it, but I think the Kings just taking it to him and being like, we're a legit
Yeah,
team, wanting to like, again, like we said, I think begging for the Kings was always strange to me. And Mike Brown has obviously just got them locked in. I mean, people told that they were just a terrible defensive team. They look absolutely locked in. Davion Mitchell, I think, has been incredible guarding Steph. That's the most fascinating series to me. I think Denver, Minnesota is what it is.
yeah.
And like the other matchups, obviously we'll dive into the Lakers one here, but and then the Suns getting back on the Clippers here. I was talking about this off air, but all these like mid-range jumpers, but I don't think I've seen a team
Yeah.
win with only mid-range jumpers. These have all gone in. Is that sustainable going into game 3 and 4 in LA for you with the
I
Clippers?
it's only sustainable as long as Booker and KD are making them. To be honest, because we know Chris Paul is going to call for a screen to get his.
Mhm.
And this second game has literally like I'm watching, and Booker just made another three to put him up double digits again. But like Booker and KD have basically saved this game for them.
Mhm.
Like and like you said, you were off air. You were talking about KD going on that run towards the end of the second quarter, going into the half to
Yeah.
tie the game, and then Booker just coming out, just hyper aggressive, shooting the ball. Like so, my two things were like definitely was the Kings. Like I thought the Kings were basically running the Warriors game plan against them, and they had effectively
Yeah.
defensively scouted the Warriors offensive game plan. Like there was a couple plays out of the timeout where the Warriors set up that back cut layup, and like the Kings defender was like ready for it. Like he just picked the ball, like he knew the pass was coming, and he was already ready for it. So it's like um there's some element of like this Kings team defensively knowing kind of what the Warriors are going to run, not perfectly, but like they kind of know. I think what's hurt the Warriors more than anything is their bench has not been good. Like Jordan Poole has
Yeah.
not been good for them, and that last game, like he had some plays where he just straight up threw the ball like out like into the stands, and I was just like, "There's no way you're going to survive this if he's playing like this because those are the minutes that you expect him to carry with that step." And the Suns game, it's not a victory lap for me, but it's just like Russ had a bad game offensively, but he was super dynamic defensively. And then, um, Kawhi just does what he does, just going right to his spots, getting the shots that he wants. Um, Suns play too much pick and roll with Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, and you just need to stop doing that and give it to your two best players. Like, and that's basically what's happened this game. Um, but it was just interesting to see like it's just interesting because us being Laker fans, like I remember I was like, I hope we get the Suns in the first round. Like I want to
Yeah.
get the Suns because I think we match up better with the Suns because they're sort of like a slower paced team because of Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. And I
Mhm.
had like a lot of confidence that our shooting would work out in our favor. And then we're watching this series. I watched game one. And I was like, bro, if this had been the Lakers, we would have demolished these guys. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to sweep them or anything, but like obviously now in hindsight, it's a little bit different because Ja got hurt and we don't know what his situation is. He's going to be like a game time decision tomorrow. But it's just East Coast playoffs have been like the injuries to Giannis, Tyler Harrell getting knocked out. Like it's just the injuries really stink. And the East Coast games, the Eastern Conference games haven't been as exciting, but the Western
There's
Conference games have been pretty great. So
The East is so top heavy, right? It just
yeah,
feels like those bottom seeds have no chance. I mean, Atlanta, Boston, right? It's just it looks like a very boring series. Boston right 2-0. Philly obviously up 2-0 on Brooklyn. Just a lot of games were like, let's get to the second round kind of thing on there. Knicks Cavs is kind of fun. I think that's interesting. Obviously, the Knicks got blown out today, but they tied the series 1-1. But yeah, I think it's going to be a monster Western Conference playoffs. With the Suns, though, I think last thing on them, I think them only having like 6 or 7 players wasn't magnified to the amount that it probably should have. And look, KD, Booker might just be good enough. Like they might just hit enough shots to where it doesn't matter. But I think as the war of attrition goes on, especially in round 2, round 3, you could rate Chris Paul already looks like he's been through 8 rounds, and we're like in game 2 of the first round. I'm interested how they look. They obviously have Denver next, probably. Denver, I'm sure, will take care of Minnesota, but Denver, whoever they play out of that series, will be interesting. But yeah, it's interesting watching the Suns only have like 7 players to go to. You're like, oh, this is the playoffs. You're like 8 dudes, 7 dudes you can trust, 8 on a like if you can. But yeah, it should be fun, man. I think teams with depth. You're seeing the Clippers come out with physicality and really took it to them. By the way, 7 point game with 4.5 left in that one. So that might get tight here with the way that the Suns rely on jump shooting.
yeah, and
But we'll see.
this is turning into exclusively KD and Book actions. Like they
Oh
got
yeah.
Russ on Book, and then they've got Kawhi on KD. So now they're just and that dude. That honestly, that's what they have to do. Like I went on
Mm-hmm.
Maples Pod, and I literally said, I was like, dude, Monty needs to stop. This Chris Paul stuff needs to stop. Like no more letting Chris Paul run pick and roll actions. Like that's not going to work. And don't run it with DeAndre Ayton because I like one of the things I talked to him offline about was like every shot that DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul take, no matter how high the efficiency of it is, it's a shot that Kevin Durant and Booker don't take. And somebody argued back to me and said, like, well, that it's okay that happens as long as they shoot high efficiency. Like a Torrey Craig went like 9 for 12 or something like that. And it was a close game that they lost. It's not like they got blown out with him shooting that way. But like my point was more like when Torrey Craig is the guy that's shooting the ball, the defense isn't like tightened up. Like there's no extra effort that the defense is putting into defending Torrey Craig. They're just going to be like, okay, we'll live with it because he's a role player.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have to shoot like prime Danny Green in order for us to really have to commit to him. But when KD is shooting a bunch of shots, now the double team is coming. When Booker is
Right.
making a bunch of shots, now the double team is coming. So it's like stuff like that makes a big difference in how defenses cover you. And it's just this series will be very interesting because I think it's going to be a game of like which coach makes the right adjustments and does the right thing, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be interesting to see. But on the topic of adjustments, the Lakers win game 1 in epic fashion. It was actually a pretty tight game for a while before we kind of blew it open towards the fourth quarter, towards the end of the game or whatever. And there were a lot of people who kind of stepped up in varying degrees, right? Like we had,
Mm-hmm.
it was a tight game. I think D'Lo had a really nice third quarter. We got the Austin Reeves fourth quarter. Rui exploded in his second half shift. Just came down draining threes and stuff like that. So we got a lot of role player contributions. And Anthony Davis was phenomenal defensively. LeBron was phenomenal defensively in the non-AD lineups that we had. So it was very clear that like our role players playing well offensively made it reduce the offensive burden on
Yeah.
LeBron and AD, and they're able to be very, very impactful defensively. So it was really nice to see that, and I did see the people who try to bait the Braun folks say that Braun didn't really have a good game and stuff like that. It's like, to be honest, this is round 1. I'm okay if we win games and Braun is just chilling out. Like I really don't care. The less work he has to do for a win, the better I feel about it. In terms of our long-term prospects and stuff like that. What were your thoughts like just coming away from that game 1 win?
Man, that Feels like forever ago. Like that was on Sunday. I mean, we're on Tuesday already. A game tomorrow, so that's 2 days off. Yeah, I think we got contributions from everyone. Obviously, Desmond Bain doesn't believe Rui Hachimura is going to do it again. But I think like he doesn't have to. You know, we have guys who can hit open shots, and with the LeBron thing, like he was able to just stand in the corner, right? It was like he's like, here, Austin Reeves, go cook this drop coverage, and I think that's like we're, which is a crazy thing to say when that's Jaren Jackson Jr., who just got his Defensive Player of the Year award, by the way, today. Congrats to him, but yeah, Austin Reeves being able to go around and they just have no answer. Desmond Bain was trying to, back pressure him. He got to his mid range, pulled up. They went under the screen one time. He hit a big three to put us up 5. The behind the back pass to Rui, he just took over in the 4th. And Nate, what I took from that is like we have a lot of dudes who can contribute. Like we have a lot of dudes who can get to the basket, who can score. D'Lo had just a D'Lo, I think, was the most scrutinized guy going into this, round one, game one playoff game, and I thought he had just a steady hand, getting us baskets when we needed it. And look, if LeBron and AD can kind of not have to carry such an offensive load in the first round, I think that's great. I think we were able to do that. I think our defense can pick up a little bit, and obviously this game is surrounded a lot by what happens with Ja, right? What the diagnosis is with him tomorrow, if Ja Morant will play. But I think the Lakers, they can get greedy and go and get game 2 if they want to. You can come out and you're gonna have to get the most desperate Memphis team that's probably gonna be in the series. But you have a shot, man. And if Anthony Davis can play like he did, and I thought that was the most defensively engaged LeBron that I've seen this year. I thought that was the most engaged he's been all season, and he got 3 blocks out of it. Could have got a few more. That's what stood out to me. And this is Austin Reeves just like one of the 3 best players on our team, jumping off the page here, and we'll see if that continues. But I don't see why it can't. They're gonna keep defending him the way he did. Wow, Chris Paul just hit a fadeaway jumper. But yeah, like it's gonna be fun to watch tomorrow. We'll see what Memphis kind of adjusts because they have a good coaching staff. We got a lot of dudes, and look, they might leave Rui Hachimura open, but he might not make 5 threes in a half. But it might be someone else. Maybe that's D'Lo out there. Maybe that's Austin on that side. Maybe that's Malik Beasley. We just have a ton of dudes who can kind of get to that, and hopefully they can steal another one tomorrow. What stood out for you in that game?
Yeah, I think just the individual contributions all the way through. Like I like the fact that like different guys had to step up. Like D'Lo didn't have a good first half. Like he was very shaky to start that game, and I got worried that like we would get a repeat of that Minnesota game where he would not be aggressive at looking for a shot. And we need him to be confident in his ability to shoot the ball, because if he's not, then it's like again, it's not going to work for the Lakers in terms of like taking advantage of the coverages that Anthony Davis may see, or the coverages that the coverages that like LeBron may see and stuff like that. So it was really good that I think it was really nice that he sort of found some confidence for himself. I think Rui just coming in and being aggressive was like, I think it was a shock to everybody, to be honest. Like I was him knocking down those first, like he didn't hesitate at all to shoot those threes. Like he knew he was going to take them as soon as they touched his hand. So I wonder if maybe somebody at halftime just kind of told him like, look, they're just going to leave you open. So you either have to take this with confidence or go to the rim. Like you have to do something with confidence. Don't think twice about what you're going to do. And I thought like that really kind of just put us in a place where it's just like, like AD and Braun were like, okay, we can kind of chill out for a second when it comes to it. And then just the Austin Reeves show at the end of the game. Like me and you have talked about it. Like if D'Lo is not going to like use that pick and roll action to get 2 feet in the paint, like he does this thing where like right when he should be trying to turn the corner on a guy after using the screen in a pick and roll, he gives it up. Like he passes it to the guy that's to like the whatever the angle pass is, the wing pass. Like he did that to Braun, and Braun made a 3, but he did it earlier in the game, and Braun bricked whatever the shot was. And I was just like, why are you running a pick and roll? And it's not like as if the guy who was covering Braun was like standing in the middle. Like he was still on Braun and he was still giving it up. And I was just like, why would you give it up to a guy who's already covered? Granted, it is LeBron James, but it's like even then, why would you give it to a guy who's already covered? So my thing was like, more like, if he's not going to do that, then we need to give those on-ball reps to Austin, because Austin seems to like to play with physicality. Like he likes to
with
play,
force.
yeah,
Yeah,
with like the in between game, the mid range stuff. Like he likes to do all that kind of stuff, and I think that is an element that we haven't had in a competitive space in a while, right? Like even when we won the championship the year that we won it, we didn't really have a mid range guy like that. Like I'm trying to think of who it would have been. It wasn't
it
Caruso.
was
It was
it was
like
AD, right?
yeah,
That was
it
our
was
mid range
yeah.
guy.
And his was like different, right? Like it's not like he was using it in pick and roll. His was like ISOs and maybe a couple
Jab
pick and
step.
pops, but yeah, that kind of stuff. So like having a guy who can keep a live dribble in the paint, in traffic, and either draw fouls or finish plays, all that sort of stuff. Like that makes a big difference. That adds a dimension to our offense that we just didn't have before. Um, and we basically got a second year guy who's got uber confidence in his ability to like do it. Like he took a pull up three off of like somebody going under the screen with full confidence. He had an inside out. Yeah, because he went out and no, he had an outside in move that got the center to like turn his hips the wrong way that allowed
And
him
he
to set
fell.
up like a layup or a floater for himself. Then he had like a mid-range pull-up shot that he had that what I mean? Like it's just like he's able to do it in different ways, and he's basically just like allowing the defense to tell him what shot he can take, and he's just taking whatever shot he can with confidence. And so, like all the role player contributions were like, I think were excellent, and there's just obviously um, the cherry on top is just Austin's performance to close out the game in the fourth
Let,
quarter.
let's stick on Austin for like because we're gonna get into the game two adjustment and stuff. Obviously, he closed the game. That was the story of it, and how they kind of defended him. They went under the screen, and he was kind of picking on them. And I think that adjustment, when Memphis is going to start go under a little bit more, right? They're going to be like, okay, prove to me that you can hit it from three, right? They're going to try to go under a little bit. And the thing about Austin is like you can't be like over physical with him, like right, because like he actually like likes that. He's like, okay, now I can get you on contact. Now I can get to the line, and you can't foul him either. He's like a 90% free throw shooter. And then also he knows how to bump you off and stuff like that. He really like revels in the physicality. My question to you, I guess, we saw one playoff game. We've seen it for like 8 games to close the season. How real is this? I guess like is it like a 20? Is it gonna be like a 20 point a game guy? It like is that the realistic, or is it like 15? Like I'm so fascinated by that. I think the playoffs kind of is where you earn your name, right? The regular season is where you kind of get, whatever accolades you can, and the playoffs is kind of where you're really earned like your stripes. And obviously game one is game one, but I'm so fascinated in that because Pickup who've had a really great stat. Like in the 2020 bubble, actually, we didn't have anyone score 20 points other than Rondo in game three in the whole run. It's an insane kind of number. Austin had 20, D'Lo was at 19, Rui was at 29 last night. So you've already kicked that out of the park. But Austin's like ability to just not just close, but I think like be that release valve where if LeBron's jumper not going, you can have a guy that can get to his shot. And Vinay, I don't know what really the adjustment, obviously going under, but you can't like not tag AD. And then Jackson, like if you don't tag AD, then it's like Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bain, or Xavier Tillman if they're big, trying to like close on AD inside, and you have LeBron on the other side. So I'm so fascinated what they do, but just sticking in Austin, how real I guess was that for you? Is this like something you think you will continue to see? Is it contingent on him just making jump shots, or like where's like your head at right now with Austin and how his like playoffs that are coming?
Yeah, he's one thing I would say that stands out. Let's put away the basketball skill part of it. Austin
Mm,
understands the game very well.
yeah.
And I think that in itself makes him incredibly valuable. Like his IQ in situations, like in just situational basketball, is incredibly high. And that is very like I don't want to say it's rare, but it's just so uncommon to see out of a second year player. He played 4 years. He's not a typical second year player. He's a guy who's got college pedigree and he's been in high leverage
Hmm.
situations before at that level. But like his ceiling is I'm in the same space that you're in. Like I'm fascinated by what his ceiling sort of looks like because
Hmm.
I don't know, like scoring 20 points a game as a guard in the NBA is hard. Scoring 20
Mhm.
points just in general is hard in the NBA. It is not easy to get 20 points a game. And most of the guys that get 20 points a game, they're taking at least 15 shots a game.
Mhm.
And I can make the argument that Austin probably won't even average 12, like next to LeBron and AD, just because of the nature of like, depending on who we bring over next year and stuff like that. Just he's normally an unselfish guy. I can't see him shooting the ball 15 times unless the coverage dictates it. So like I don't know if he's a 20-point guy, but I feel like he's like I'm trying to think of a guy who like took a we always think of it like when you trade for a guy who's like an established vet on another team, and then you think to yourself you're gonna bring them like the Russ thing, right? Like we trade for Russ, he's gonna take a smaller role, but because he's in a smaller role, he'll be more impactful because he has to concentrate on doing certain things, stuff like that. And obviously that didn't
That's
work
the
out for
theory,
us.
right?
That's the
That's the
theory,
theory.
right?
Mhm.
Like Austin reminds me of like his play and productivity reminds me of like us trading for a guy for that purpose and getting that out of him. You know what I mean? Like he plays like a vet. He reads the floor like a vet. His productivity is like a vet. He doesn't do dumb stuff. Like he plays like he understands, he knows how to take charges, when to reach, when to, be physical, all that sort of stuff. He reads that stuff from the reffing pretty well. And he's just having to do it for us on low volume because we have two superstars on our roster who we're going to be, like are going to be taking at least 20 shots a game. So that's the fascinating part with him. It's like getting not I don't want to say star player because then people will be like, oh, the Lakers are stacked or something like that. But it's like you're getting like a really productive role player on your team who could very clearly be better than if he was allowed the volume to be better. But because of the situation he's in, he's just kind of doing like it was like the Kuzma thing almost for us. Like we knew that if we gave Kuzma 15 to 20 shots consistently a night, he would have nights where he put up like 30 or 35 just off the strength of how talented he is without the ball in his hands and just as a player. But he had to play a diminished role because he had literally was playing behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And so like that's the way I think of him. He has the ability to hit that ceiling, but he may not necessarily get the volume or opportunity. Just
Well,
and that's just, it is what it is.
so I'm surprised Kuzma never scoring 20 in a playoff game. That's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've had a few blowouts. We've had games where we, won by a lot in the playoffs where there was some garbage time. I'm surprised he never touched it. What it is to me, Vinay, and is that Austin takes playoff shots, right? Those are playoff level shots that he takes. Like even all the other guys we filled in, KCP, Caruso, Danny Green, all of them are spot up types. They're kind of very much reliant on the creation of LeBron and Anthony Davis, right? So your scoring is it's marginalized to like you get these whenever the defense decides to play off you. This is when your time is. Austin's like, no, I'm gonna go to the line 8 times tonight. Like, or like I'm this mid-range jump shot, which is like the shot you have to give up. It's why guys like Kawhi, I'm not comparing Austin to these guys. I'm just saying like it's why they have the volume shots they do. He can get to that spot and pull up. And it's a super efficient shot. But anyway, we closed the game. I was looking at the play-by-play. It was like Austin 3, Austin assist to Rui. That the thought process in a 2-point game to throw a behind the back pass to a guy on the top of the key with 5 minutes left in a playoff game is just. But anyway, it was that assist, and it was the 3, then it was the 2 mid-range pull-ups where he screamed, I'm him. Those are like all playoff looks. That's like the defense going under, trying to okay, we'll give you this. Okay, now the defense is dropped back into drop coverage because they're worried about AD rolling. I'm pulling up in this 2 dribble pull-up mid-range going left. Those are playoff level jumpers that I don't know. It doesn't feel fluky. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like a fluky stretch. He scored 24 or whatever last night. He's been scoring 20 since for about 2 months now. So like it doesn't feel fluky. That's why I'm like asking you what if it's doing it in playoff games, it becomes a lot more certified. It becomes a lot more legit, right? And it's interesting. I'm so fascinated how this series goes because they're obviously going to adjust, but they're not going to pull Dylan Brooks off LeBron and throw him on Austin Reeves. I don't think
No.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I would suspect if I had to take a guess at what Memphis's adjustments are going to be with or without
Mhm.
Ja, just defensively what their adjustments are going to
Yeah.
be. I think they're probably going to just try and be much more physical with the Lakers ball handlers. Like I don't know if they'll play like full court pressure because they don't typically do that with like Ja's not playing full court. Like they're not going to put Dylan. They're not going to waste Dylan Brooks or Desmond Bain and tell them to play full court because that can gas them out too as well. If they have to guard other guys. But I suspect like any of that action, the pick and roll action stuff, or any of that, I think you're just going to get a higher level of physicality from them because it felt like AD really set the tone in the paint, which is what me and you both wanted him to do. Like you have to dominate the paint completely on both ends, rebounding defensively, blocking shots, whatever. And he was phenomenal. But like there has to be like a physicality response, you know what I mean? Like by the opposing team. And I think if I had to take a guess at what Taylor Jenkins is probably telling these guys, he's probably telling them, look, the shots you guys got were fine. Like the motion we ran was fine, but we let Austin Reeves get 20 on us. We let Rui Hachimura get 29 on us. We let D'Angelo Russell get 19 on us. Like that can't happen. Like we can't let role players get off like that. So I wonder if we're going to see like a heightened level of physicality on our role players specifically, which can go both ways. Like maybe like we just talked about Austin, you can't be overly physical with him because he'll get you in foul trouble if he feels you being hyper aggressive. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I think that's probably like the number one thing that Memphis is probably looking at right now, being the aggressors.
Yeah, and I guess the issue with that is then, well, the reason the role players went off is because they sent so much at AD and LeBron, right? So they didn't want Jaren Jackson on AD because they don't want him in foul trouble. I mean, Jaren Jackson 2 fouls the whole game, 2 fouls, was not in foul trouble, dropped 30 points. He was incredible. Might be the best playoff Jackson game in a while. Like he no foul trouble at all was in the game, and he was really good. But they were like shading too on him, and that's where Rui got all those open looks. They were obviously protecting the paint against AD, and then they were trapping anytime LeBron wanted to. Remember that second quarter, we had the non-AD minutes, and LeBron tried to like pick on Ja or Kennard, and they just trapped it. And he was like, he threw this lackadaisical behind the back pass that got picked off. But they're being aggressive with them, and it's kind of opened up the role players. But you think they kind of lay off a little bit, and then that's, I guess, where AD and LeBron can kind of cook, right? They can go in the post and score their 30 or whatever if the role players can't go and get going. I'm so fascinated where Memphis goes. It's like, honestly, I mean, they had Desmond Bain on Austin, and he just threw him on every screen. He ate every single screen with him going around. And obviously you don't want to put Tyus Jones on there. Dylan Brooks, obviously we just talked about. From there, it's Xavier Tillman. Maybe they go small. I don't know. Like start Aldama or something like that, or Conchar. But yeah, it's interesting. Or Roddy, we'll see with no job. But that's why I like what Austin does in game 2 after you've been on the whiteboard, right? They're gonna be like, Austin's on the whiteboard. He's now on our scouting list where he's one of our top priorities. How he goes on that is interesting for game 2.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they adjust defensively to everything.
Yeah.
That trade-off is a little interesting because I can't imagine that they want to, like we talked about it beforehand, like they're not going to deviate from the whole we're going to show AD a double and get the ball out of his hands because we don't want him playing one-on-one against Xavier Tillman. And I don't think that's going to change. I feel like that's always going to be a priority. And if only one or Braun and AD is on the court, they're going to try to get the ball out of that individual player's hands. I think I just wonder sometimes that like when teams try to do stuff like that, like you have to be really, really good with your rotations on the backside. Like you have to be really crisp with if you're going to show a double team and then rotate backwards. And Austin actually Rui are kind of clever enough to read closeouts to know whether the guy's going to get there in time or not. And so I don't know if you'll be able to, like, if Memphis is sharp enough defensively without the rim protection. I don't know if they're sharp enough defensively to be able to do it. And like you said, like Jaren Jackson Jr., like he wasn't even in foul trouble, and like it felt like at times we were just getting whatever shot we wanted to get. And like Braun had a couple nice plays, just wide open lane, just going right down the middle and dunking the ball early to set the tone to start the game and stuff like that. So like the biggest, see if Ja doesn't play tomorrow, then the Lakers can like, they're even less, like they can crash the glass even more on the offensive glass So it's like if you leave anybody open, somebody's going to get a free run to the rim to put the ball back in. So it's like if they're helping off of Vando, and the reason why Ja's impact is because Ja is now not pushing the ball the other way on a live miss, or if they don't get the offensive rebound. So it's just I'm not sure like what Memphis does outside of just you know completely taking us out of our rhythm, or the Lakers just come out and bricking everything. Like that's the other thing that could possibly happen too. But I think they'll try to give one more game. They'll probably tighten it up a little bit on the defensive end, but they'll give one more game of kind of leaving the role players open to see if the
Mhm.
role players can replicate what they did the first game. Because I think teams, that's the calculated gamble they take. That's like the calculated risk they take. Can Rui Hachimura make enough shots against us playing our offense, as long as Braun or AD don't shoot it, to win those minutes, for the Lakers to win those minutes? So I'll be very curious to see how much more different their adjustments are. But like, are there any adjustments that like maybe you saw like on the defensive end that the Lakers probably have to do to adjust to kind of whatever Memphis was getting done?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's crazy because this is a series where at least when Ja was healthy, I think you talked about it. You can kind of crash the boards more, but I think if Ja's not playing, they're gonna start Tyus Jones, right? Tyus Jones will start for them. That's a different type of defense you have to play on Tyus Jones, right? You can't give Tyus Jones jump shots like he can shoot. But for the most part, like our game plan, Renee, was like 80, you sit in a drop, just don't let Jaren Jackson Jr. roll behind you. And then if John Morant wants to take jump shots, if Dylan Brooks wants to take jump shots, because that's really their guards that create off the dribble, right? Desmond Bane's trying to run off ball screen, like off ball screens, and he just couldn't get open. He was shooting like 35 footers. He was 6 for 18. Two of them were like super long threes. But with Tyus Jones in the equation, that changes a little bit. You have to be a little bit higher up, but you can kind of chase over him. He's not as much of a high volume shooter, more like a very careful, very trying to decide where the ball goes. Very he's not like as reckless as a 3-point shooter. He doesn't really take volume threes. So I'm interested, but I don't think they have to switch anything up. They like wonder who Vanderbilt guards. I guess if it's not John Morant, I guess you put him on Desmond Bain maybe, or maybe more Rui minutes. But there's a lot of places to go with that, and I think AD really took over defensively in that first game by being able to be dropped back and only having Jackson and then Tillman out there. They don't even go to offensively, and then you just live with Dylan Brooks, John Morant, and just hang on to Desmond Bain, chase him around, and they really did a nice job on him. So I don't know. What do you think they have to switch anything up? They started switching a little bit at the end of the game just to like prevent threes, but for the most part, it was a pretty standard coverage. Keep keep Ja out of the paint. Jared Vanderbilt chasing him around hellaciously, and making him feel him, and then like living with Ja. Ja had like 19 points. 4 of them were jump shots. You know what I mean? So like they kept him off the line, they kept him off the rim, and they were able to take game one. But do you see any like defensive adjustments? I guess they need to make. I think they're going to go with the same kind of game plan.
Yeah, I think the game plan's going to change. I think Vando might just end up just on Tyus Jones, just for the sake of not having to break continuity of whatever's going on
Mm,
with the floor, because he's still actually pretty, like, he's got a nice floater. He's got one of the nicer floaters
yeah.
in the league coming off of that screen. He can dish it out. He's not really the rim pressure kind of guy that Ja is. Like, you have to
Hmm.
like really pay attention to Ja when he's getting downhill. Where Tyus probably plays at a slightly at more of a slower pace. He's not like super fast or super bouncy. So that might actually play into Vando's favor, because his length, he can bother him from behind and stuff like that with back pressure and all that sort of stuff. So it should be. I don't think they'll change their coverages very differently. Honestly, defensively, I don't think the Lakers are going to do anything defensively. I think maybe the most they'll probably do is that stretch. There was a stretch where Desmond Bain was just kind of getting whatever he wanted, because, and I think it was against like the bench unit maybe, where he was just kind of
Hmm.
running around screens and stuff like that. I think that's probably. I know Dennis was like in foul trouble, but I think like that's probably something that if I was the Lakers coach, I'd probably keep an eye on, just because Desmond Bain, again, he's the type of guy who can get super hot and turn a 3-point lead into a 13-point lead in the blink of an eye if the game gets fast enough. So it's with or without Ja, that's probably one of my concerns from what I saw defensively. How do you counter that? It's just really try not to get in foul trouble. Like Dennis has got to be able to stay on the
Hmm.
floor. I will say one thing that I do appreciate. You and I have been talking a lot about the tacticalness of using certain lineups and using certain players, and I thought Darvin Ham did a really nice job being tactical. Like I
Yeah,
remember like both of us said that like, look, if Dennis is shooting some of the worst splits that you could imagine post trade deadline, and Vando's obviously not a shooter to himself, so playing them together is not a good idea because it's too many non-shooters. Like we didn't play Wenyon. Wenyon got 0 minutes like in that game. We went with Rui. Like Ham was like, I'm playing Rui as small ball five or whatever against Jaren Jackson Jr.
I think we predicted that too. We're like, there's
Yeah,
not Winnie's not going to play in this series. Yeah.
yeah. And so my hat's off to Darvin Ham because he was tactically deploying our defensive guys in the defensive assignments. So he was specifically putting Dennis on specific matchups as opposed to just I want you to be the only guy who does ball pressure. No, no, no. He was more like, no, Dennis, you're guarding this guy because this is what they like to do with him and this is what you're good at. So your defensive skill can off put whatever that offensive skill. And then Vando is the same thing. Like we're putting you on job because we want you to help corral him. And I think when we were talking about it, we said that like make Ja go to his left hand, and so that way
Hmm.
AD can help out. Don't let him get to his right hand. Make him only use this side of the court and not that side of the court. And I thought we did all that stuff, and that was really great to see us do that. And so I think there might just be some more tactical deployment stuff that we can probably do. Obviously, if Dennis stays out of foul trouble and stuff like that, we can deploy him more tactically too as well. Um, on the offensive end, shoot, I don't know. Like it's just it's very hard to be upset when we have three guys that go pretty much 20 points or more, the role players that go 20 points or more. But honestly, I would like to see D'Lo like have a nice game start to finish, just because it's just like I have to see it. Like he's not getting special treatment from anybody, and it's not so much like he played a good game. Right? He finished
Yeah.
with an efficient game, but like I it's the part of me is like I need to know that I can get this out of you consistently so that we know what other things we have to fix in the process of doing that. Like it can't be like, hey, we're in a dogfight and we're down 6 or 7 points and now you start getting hot, which is great. I appreciate it. But we know that you're capable of being a consistent scorer, knocking down shots and stuff like that. So, obviously his ankle or whatever his issues are, physical issues may be affecting him. But like, I'd really like to see him have like a nice game start to finish. Or else I think we'll keep getting this theme that we get on it on Lakers Twitter, which is first half a lot of grumbling about D'Lo, and then second half he plays better. Which hats off to him. Like he adjusted and he stepped up, so that was good to see.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what we're gonna get from him. Like it feels like he can sometimes get rushed with physicality, but I don't think he's ever going to press the issue, right? There was a few times though, like we were down 6 or 8 and he came back and hit like a step back jumper. You know what I mean? That's just stuff that he can get to. He just doesn't go to it. He's not like, oh, this worked one time, let me go to it 3 times in a row. That's just not his game. It's more in the flow of the offense, spot up shooting. And Memphis can really can really close out on you and kind of take that away. But 19-7, that's kind of where I think he'll live, like kind of in this, especially with Austin starting to rise as well. But Vinay, I think a big part I think that we have to adjust to where, so Anthony Davis was plus 27, right, in his minutes. It was a close game though in this one, and I think the Rui LeBron second unit, I thought we did a fine job, but they kind of scored a little bit pretty easy on that matchup. You talked about it. Bane got his buckets there. Would you enter Bamba in this equation? Would you try it, or would you kind of still go with it? Could we put Vando on JJJ for a couple minutes of fourth, and he got cooked? They went away from it right away. And again, credit on Ham. 2 possessions out. Jackson got like 6 points. But would you go to Bamba, I guess, here, or would you kind of just live with, look, Rui, LeBron, do the best you can, and do the best you can on those guys. Try to keep them out the lane, keep them in front, and then we just come back with AD. Or would you try to put more size out there? Obviously, not Tristan Thompson, but any of our other bigs that we have.
Yeah, I think knowing sort of the way the logical steps or the steps of logic that takes when Ham does it, like he's probably going to go with he's probably gonna try it again just to see if he gets a different result this time. And maybe send help or something like that if Vando gets caught. Like just Van, you could just tell like when they matched up, like as soon as that
Hmm.
ISO happened, I was like, "There's no chance Vando has that defending this," because you could just see like the weight difference between the two
Oh yeah,
players. It's like a heavyweight guy versus like a middleweight guy or whatever the higher version of the lightweight guy is. And so like when I saw that, I was just like, "Oh, there's no way that they're gonna keep doing this." So again, like you said, like kudos to him. He saw it twice and he's like, "Okay, we're not doing this anymore because it's way too much of an advantage." But like I think I don't think dude, I'm telling you, man, I don't think he's gonna play Bamba. I don't know what it is. Like it just I don't know what Mo did. Maybe they're just kind of hiding,
he was
not
out,
hiding, but
right?
like
I
yeah, they're
think he was
just
out too long. Like that's
yeah.
you don't think that's what it is? I think he was out
It
four
could be, but it's
weeks.
just like how hard is the role? Just play defense against like we're not doing anything exotic, right? Like drop
Hmm.
coverage big is a very easy job. It's not something that's very complicated. And Bamba's played enough games where he kind of knows how that sort of works. So it's just
It's a good
for me, it's
point.
just very strange that like we wouldn't deploy him, especially since we need a body. But I think he'll probably try and do the same thing. Maybe he'll just stick with Rui in that situation and see what he can do from there, and then just let him play.
Yeah, it's just we gave up so many layups with that. You know what I mean? Rui doesn't really have the lateral quickness, and then obviously LeBron as well on the perimeter. That's just it's really tough to kind of keep up there. Look, I think Mo Bamba can play. I think he can really protect the rim. I think his spot up shooting can go. It's just he has not played long enough. He was out what, like 4 weeks with the high ankle sprain. I just cannot see them going back to him. But we'll see. And I honestly, I think Wenyan's ahead of Bamba. I don't think this is a Bamba. I don't think this is a Wenyan series. I think we talked about that before, where like guards who can really go into his chest. It's just not a place where Wenyan is good. Wenyan's really good laterally, but once they get into the air, he can't really contest. So yeah, I'm interested. Bamba had like this big block, right? Remember, he had this like
Yeah,
huge block in one of those games, and then we just never saw him because he got hurt. He missed 4 weeks and lost his spot in the rotation. Wenyan was actually solid for us in the regular season. But I think, we might need a little bit of size. Taylor Jenkins is doing something smart, and Minnesota did this as well. They're playing Jackson in the non-AD minutes too, right? They're here, Jackson, go cook for a couple minutes, and he did. He got a lot of points during that stretch. He had 21 in the first half, and a lot of that was in that unit there where it was like no AD on the floor, and he can just kind of get to the rim. So I'm interested. That's kind of the only place, Vinay, where I thought we struggled. Other than that, I thought we controlled game one. Like even with Jaw healthy, we controlled game one for a lot of that. We came out with a quick lead. They came back, but I thought we were in control for most of that game. Obviously, until AD couldn't feel his arm, and there was a little bit of a.
oh my god, we didn't even talk about that. That was
uh,
oh my god. Like when so I was watching the replay, I was just like, bro, there's no way
mm,
this can be a serious injury because if this is a serious injury, like I'm going to lose my mind that he like especially with the game he was having such a good game for like some incidental contact to be the reason that like he's like knocked out of the series. So fortunately it was a stinger. And I was reading his lips like every Laker fan probably
yeah,
was because they zoomed in on his face in the instant replay where he said, "I can't feel my arm" or something. I was like, "Bro, please don't have dislocated your shoulder or something like that." You know what I mean? Like, uh, that was yeah, it was there was an emotional roller coaster for me like until we got the
hopefully,
actual
hopefully we got that out of the way, right? The one AD scare, like in the playoffs, we just got that out of the way. Round
yeah
one, half one, that's gone. But he was an absolute monster, man. And this is what playoff AD looks like.
yeah
Hopefully, we'll see if this is playoff LeBron. But yeah, that was super scary. I wish he didn't even say that. You know what I mean? Just go in the locker
yeah
room first. Like, don't. Who are you telling that you can't feel your arm like right on the
yeah
right on the floor? And he walked off and went straight to the locker room. And then of course the halftime people just absolutely went in on him. Didn't matter what he had in that first half. They just absolutely murdered him. But yeah, I was able to come back and yeah, he was super dominant and took over. So we'll see if he can do it in game two. But Vinay, that was probably the best like outcome of game one. Obviously, you don't want
yeah
Jaw being hurt at the end, but like just in terms of like our game plan versus what they wanted to give up, like our role players hit the shots that they were gonna force all season, all series. That like rotation over will be like it's just human nature, right? A guy hits three straight threes. Like it's human nature to be like, oh, I have to at least think about before I tag this guy like before I leave him, even if it's subconsciously. Like I'm interested to see how that looks in game 2. But let me ask you, obviously the 5 threes, what was sustainable to you on that Rui performance? The 29 points. He's shooting. I think he's a better 3-point shooter now than he was 2 months ago, at least. And now he's not gonna hit 5 or 6 from three. He's not gonna go 11 for 14. But like, what from that whole? Because he was incredible everywhere, honestly. Mid range pull ups, defensively. But what to you was sustainable from Rui's game 1?
Yeah, I think the looks that he was getting is sustainable. Like I
Mm,
think the way his looks were generated for him, just
hmm
kind of naturally, like it didn't seem like too much of it was forced, like too much of his offense was being forced. They were, when he got very clear isolation matchups, they kind of clear sided for him, and he got nice shots off. All of those threes he took were just basically Memphis saying, "We don't think you can make enough threes." Like I don't think he's going to hit 5 threes in a game again, like that. But if he attempts 6 and he makes 2 of them, like that's more than enough, to be honest, to keep the defense honest. Assuming he's doing like his regular stuff in the mid range and that sort of stuff. And he's pretty selective himself when he shoots the ball. He doesn't like start jacking up a bunch of bad shots and like I think he had a travel too at one point where he like there was 2 Memphis. It was like Ja and I think Jaren both at the rim, and like he didn't have a good look, and he literally traveled with the ball because he landed with it because he couldn't figure out which hand he wanted to throw the ball up with. So it's like when I saw that, I was like, oh, he's very selective with like when he takes a shot and stuff to the point where he might turn it over more than he takes a bad shot. So I think that's definitely sustainable. Like the looks that we were generating, I think is sustainable. I don't think that's going to go away because if Memphis defense starts tightening up their rotations to make those shots that shot quality worse, that usually means somebody's got single coverage. Like it's going to be Braun or AD. One of them is going to have single coverage that they can kind of go to. Um, there was one aspect I think of the game that I remember I think I live tweeted it at the time. Like we got a little jump shot happy at one point,
hmm
and I want to say we took like 3, 4, maybe 5 jump shots in a row, and they weren't really playing size on the floor, like real rim protecting size in that sense on the floor, and like we needed to get to the rim, and I think we eventually did, but it's just like that was like we can't fall into a jump shooting game. Like that's one of the things that I think sometimes like when we complain, like I've complained about like Ham's letting them freestyle the offense. Sometimes he doesn't tell them, "Yo, go to the rim, stop taking jump shots." They don't have anybody protecting the rim. So it's like as long as that kind of stuff doesn't happen, I think the sustainability of our offense, like it didn't feel like we got anything like super duper easy. Like it didn't seem like
No.
we got like we just did, like outside of maybe them leaving Rui open, which Desmond Bain already told us that was part of their game plan. Like and then he went so far to say, let's see, that's just one game, see if he can do it again. I was like, dude, if you're going to run the same exact coverage again, like Rui's playing for a contract. Like you don't want to contract your guy to be the guy, like that guy's going to be like, my rule of thumb is like, you never leave those guys open because those guys are like the most laser focused guys. Like they know that, making these 2 or 3 wide open threes is going to be the difference between them getting a $20 million contract versus a $10 million contract. So, yeah, this sustainability wise, I think we should be okay.
Yeah, and so I thought we did a really nice job. I thought, Memphis wants to run, and I thought we took that away. We really slowed the pace down. We kind of ran on them, and then Vinay, we punched them on the offensive rebound. So like the first quarter, right? It was Vanderbilt and AD just tapping the ball like every single time. And what happened was they had to start sending 2 on AD to box him out. Like it's just a lot to account for when you have to like send 2 on AD, and then you also have to be like, I have to know where Vanderbilt is. Like I have to actually account for like where he is on the floor, and that's just a domino effect that like starts really breaking down your defense to where like, okay, now here's Austin Reeves open, here's D'Angelo Russell open, here's Rui Hachimura open, and yeah, he's not gonna hit all those threes, but he doesn't have to. Like that can be someone else in that spot. That can be Troy Brown can have a game. Malik Beasley, I don't know if he's playable in this series defensively, but it could be a Malik Beasley game. He can get hot for like a quarter. And yeah, Rui's not the shooter to me that he was a month ago. Like this guy, it's a lot more clean. He looks like he shot a million of those reps. And then if you close out a little bit, he's so much bigger, Vinay, than anyone who's on him. Like it was a big shot. I think we were up 1 or down 1, and like he had Desmond Bain on him, and just back down fadeaway, looking like Kawhi Leonard, like just like swishing through the net. And I'm like, man, this guy can do that whenever he wants. There's no one really with size to put on. Again, you're not putting Dylan Brooks from LeBron onto Rui Hachimura. That's not happening. So he has like a mismatch there where he can really get to that. And they're obviously in his ear telling him, shoot the damn ball. It doesn't matter. You have confidence in it. So yeah, it looks like that's going to be their game plan. I wonder when they switch Jackson over to AD if that ever happens. But I think right now Memphis is going to continue with this game plan. The Lakers guys just have to hit open shots, have to attack closeouts. You talked about D'Lo. Hopefully, those first 3 shots look like, oh no, like the first 3 shots from D'Lo. You know what I mean? They were way off. I think one was like almost an air ball, and he kind of forced it too. It was like
Yeah.
left through the legs, step back 3. I'm like, find it in the rhythm of the game. You'll get your looks, and he really settled down in that way. But yeah, look, we have a backcourt. I think that's legit. I think we have obviously LeBron AD in the front court, and Vanderbilt just wreaking havoc. Should be a good starting 5 to take over in game 2 as well.
What do you think? So they started that game off showing a double to AD, not a hard double, but they kind of like showed a double to AD, and the Lakers had Vando flash right into the middle of the paint, and I think AD got it directly to him for a dunk, and it seems like, again, this is funny because this is exactly what we talked about before the series started. Me and you both said, where the help is coming from.
Exactly.
And who is going to be helped off of. You need to tell that person, if it's going to be Vando, where he needs to be when that double comes, so that way AD and him know what to do. If it's going to go to him or if AD is going to kick it out. If it's, like, it can't be what we were doing in the regular season, which was pass it back out to the guy who made the entry pass, then swing it all the way around to the corner to Vando, who doesn't want to really shoot that 3 to begin with. There has to be an easier shot that we can create. And they did that once, and Memphis immediately scrapped whatever their plan was going to be with that double team that was coming. Because after that, when they kept trying to do it, Vando did exactly what you just described, which was he started tipping out rebounds, even if he couldn't grab offensive rebounds, if he couldn't grab it himself. And that, for anybody who's unfamiliar with playoff basketball, like we saw it in the Suns game, the Suns Clippers game 1 with Russ grabbing a bunch of extra rebounds. We saw it in the Kings Warriors game when the Kings were grabbing a bunch of offensive rebounds from Sabonis or from one, like Harrison Barnes or somebody tipping it out. Like in playoff basketball, the volume of possessions you get because of the pace of the game and the execution from both teams comes down so low that offensive rebounds and extra possessions, no matter how bad your offense is extremely valuable. Like the value of that skyrockets getting extra possessions. And we beat Memphis by the score that we beat them by, but those possessions are extremely valuable, second possessions, because you've caused the defense to expend energy. If it's the full 24 seconds, now they have to play another 14 seconds of defense. And that stuff, the attrition accumulates over the course of a game. And that stuff is extremely valuable. So it's like, I'm glad that they figured that part out, at least. It didn't turn into one of those things where, like, Laker fans would have just spent the post game just saying Vando can't start. Like you have to pull him out of the starting lineup. So I'm glad that they figured that part out. And obviously he was effective. Just chasing Ja around, pressing him, corralling him, and directing him in specific directions out of the pick and roll and stuff like that. So I thought that was really good. Like I thought in general, like that whole process was really, really good. I do want to say this. It is really nice to have multiple guys, and we have Austin, Rui, Braun when he's like in the mood for it, AD when he's in the mood for it. Like, but Austin, Rui, and D'Lo, like guys really comfortable to take the mid-range shot. We legit have not had guys who will like, that's the shot I want to get. You know what I mean? Like as opposed to I'm being forced to take this shot. And I think an underrated part of all of this, obviously everything has always been about like, get them more spacing. We got rid of Russ, and now we got rid of this albatross player that was just junking up the offense. And now everything, but we've lost games also, like, and we've also looked bad even with the new roster. But one of the things that we have not looked bad at is the breadth of our shot profile. Like we have
Mhm.
guys that can shoot threes, we have guys that can get middies, and then we have guys that can get to the rim. Sometimes they have to be coached into doing that. Like, hey, you don't need to take the three, go to the rim, that sort of thing. That's Ham's job. But like, it's kind of like it's for me, it's like uncharted territory right now because like during the LeBron era, like we haven't really had guys that can do it at three different levels like this. So it's just it just popped in my mind as I was talking. I was like, it's just kind of nice that like we don't have to be forced to play a certain way because of certain limitations.
We have a shot variety, right? Like we have a shot variety. We have a shot diet that goes all around the floor. You can have, you have a guy who can shoot threes in transition and D'Lo. You have a mid-range shooter. D'Lo can also take from the mid-range as well. He's got some of those as well. He got Desmond Bain on his back and took those. You have Austin Reeves, and then I call Rui the release valve. And like that's been my term for him this whole time. Obviously, the threes are great, but like to be able to just like, hey, there's nothing going. Here's the ball, go bully ball. And he's starting to like, again, not to for this to be a Rui praise podcast, not what it was
I mean,
for, but
he had 29 points, bro. Like
that's
what?
fair.
Like what?
That's fair. That's fair.
We traded Kendrick. Everybody's just like, oh, the Lakers got so much better when they traded Russ. Bro, we traded Kendrick Nunn and a couple second rounders for a guy who just put up 29 and led the Lakers in scoring on a team that has LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That was like he won you a playoff game in a playoff series.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You wouldn't have expected that to happen. Go ahead.
And he's nowhere near the player that he was when he came over from Washington. I mean, you could tell when he came over, he had a lot of his game was still skilled, but it was rigid. And I feel like now it's a lot more fluid, right? Like I feel like the bully ball used to be just mid range, but now he's like, oh, I'm 50 pounds heavier than you, and I also have the ball handling. I'm gonna put you in the basket, right? Now it's like bully ball to the rim. It's like layups. He got free throws as well. He got a huge offensive rebound off of like an AD miss. And that's where to me, like where he's living, not just in the mid range, being able to get to the rim. And yeah, we just have a shot diet that like is very balanced. But hey, like just not to pull the late game, but like we told LeBron go stand in the corner. Like not to, we don't tell LeBron obviously, but like LeBron's like, I'm gonna go stand in the corner. Like, and even D'Lo was like, no, this is your offense. Like, I'm just gonna screen for you. Go stand in the corner. AD's like, tell me where you want me to screen. Dude, this is a dude that was playing summer league for us last year. Like last year, he was playing summer league basketball. Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, and now he's like closing playoff games with LeBron on the floor. I thought like, okay, it's gonna be LeBron on the ball now. It's his time. And he's like, no, this dude just keeps on cooking. And in Memphis never adjusted. They still had Dylan Brooks face guarding LeBron 35 feet away from the basket, just taking him completely out the play. And it's like Desmond Bain and those guys trying to help. So yeah, we have a really nice balanced roster. And it's really fun and nice to see with a just we've never had that with next to LeBron and AD. It's just never been that. Obviously with the Russ, the machinations of the roster, you couldn't really build that. And then also before then it was the title team, which was a little bit more marginal in terms of 3-and-D guys next to them. And now you have all these shot creators next to them who are like, no, I'm gonna get my own basket. Like I'm not, and sometimes it's to our detriment. Like, can you just throw the bounce pass to AD? Like he's rolling. Can you just throw the bounce pass, please? But but you live with those sometimes for the baskets that they get.
Yeah, it's. I think the fascinating part also is. I remember I was telling my buddies off of Twitter. I was telling them, I was like, the one other thing that I also realized was that Minnesota game. We closed our backcourt. Closing backcourt was Dennis and Austin, but in this game it was D'Lo and Austin. So it's like a part of it tells me that like Austin may be that third guy that's just always there, part of the closing lineup, just because he can play that backup point guard or bring the ball handling role that they want. He can bring it up, run the offense, and then go stand in the corner because he's a freaking like 45% 3-point shooter, so he can also space the floor for us. Or he can be the on-ball guy and he can go and attack the rim or draw a foul or set up a teammate, whatever it's going to be. So it's like, if Laker fans had any sort of aspirations, or not aspirations, but like just kind of rumination of that, like, oh, it was going to be D'Lo, Bron, and like, I think that most of us thought that it's going to be D'Lo, Bron, and AD for sure. Like those are the three guys we're going to close with, and it's just whatever, if it's Vando or Rui, if it's Austin or Dennis, we'll figure it out. And it hasn't been that. It's actually been Austin, Bron, and AD that have been closing these games out, and I think it's phenomenal for Austin. that he's getting this opportunity and he's like answering the bell. And I'm sure he's going to have a game where he doesn't play well. Like it's not like teams are just going to continue letting Austin just go off like this on them. I'm sure Memphis will respect him to some degree. Same thing with Rui to some degree. But as long as they're not doing it and he's continuing to be aggressive, like I honestly feel like this is like almost a year and a half's worth of complaining that you and I have done about like Austin being like, we know he can be this guy. It's just
Yeah.
we just need him to do it. And I do think it's a really nice moment that I do think it's very cool that like Braun like stepped aside. Like not stepped aside in the sense that like he took a lesser role, but he's just like, no, this guy is winning his matchup and he's making his shots. Just let him go. Like just let him do it. And it's cool to see that because we haven't had a young guy to be really excited about that's shown us this much, via the draft or something like that since the baby Lakers that we had back in the
Yeah.
day, before we traded all of them. I was gonna ask you something. What did you think about AD's screening in Game 1? I'm serious question because
Yeah.
I was watching it and I was like, these are some pretty nice screens that AD is setting right now.
You can totally tell when he wants to screen and not, and it's the most frustrating thing because like sometimes it's like a close game in a really tight, maybe even regular season, and he's like slipping it every single time, like 80. And maybe it's a contact thing, doesn't want it, but no, that in game one, I talked about Desmond Bain. He was getting eaten on screens, and that was because AD was like set right. And I don't think AD was called for a single moving screen either. I think it was. I didn't think he got an offensive foul on that. But yeah, he set some really good on ball screens. And what happens when you do that? That kills the defense, right? Now that Desmond Bain's taken out of the play, he's behind, and that opens up the mid range shot. That also opens up AD. That opens him up on the roll when you set the screen nicely. So I thought it was good. But yeah, I've had some definitely questions on that throughout the season. A lot of times, not just AD as well. Our bigs just don't set solid picks. They slip a lot of those looking for the for the ball under the basket. But you gotta get some contact there to make that happen. And Memphis is like, if you don't screen them, they're gonna be on your hip. Like they chase over like that. Desmond Bain chases over Dylan Brooks as well. LeBron had a hard time getting free. Like Dylan Brooks slides, his feet really nicely on those. So you got to set a really nice screen, and they can draw offensive fouls on that. But I thought it's AD Reeves being our like closing ball handling combo, and it just hasn't been last night. It's been, if you remember in that Utah game as well, Benet, the one on the road that was way more stressful than it needed to be, but it was like a Reeves ball screen where he got to the mid range and pulled up for like a game winner as well. And then I think also against Pat Bev on the road in Chicago, hit a big like floating shot where he did the too small on Patrick Beverly. That's our late game offense. You know what I mean? LeBron James played in all those games. So, but yeah, it's great. Like I thought his screening was really good in game one for sure.
Yeah, so it's just like those kind of small things, like just seeing them kind of come through for us, like just seeing them be more crisp and be more like the detail being more paid attention to was like just kind of nice to see. Like the tacticalness from Darvin Ham, just the
Also,
execution was much nicer. Go ahead.
Also, remember like the Vanderbilt corner threes? I was like, man, what are we doing? And he only took one, and he also only took 4 shots in game one. We were like feeding him. Like it was like, can we stop giving Vanderbilt the ball with like 2 people on him in the paint? And that also kind of that stopped in game one as well. So hopefully that was a regular season thing. And look, Vanderbilt should work on his threes in off season. I think that would make him a lot more of a dynamic player. Part of the reason he makes $4 million next year is because of the offensive liability that he is. So I'm sure upping that also has a financial incentive for him. But yeah, I hope that was taken out, and we'll see if that continues. But I thought that was also another adjustment. Like Vanderbilt, you stay at the dunker spot, you go attack the offensive rebound. You are not being utilized as a spacer, which I think was really important there, because obviously Jackson being able to play off him is kind of their scheme defensively. It's where they're trying to make their mark, is where Jackson kind of roam. I thought he did a really nice job making Jackson at least aware of where he is, right? You have to be aware of where he is on the glass, and I thought that was a nice adjustment there as well.
Yeah, it's I think, yeah, maybe it's just one of those things where it's just like once you get in the playoffs, they get more time to devote just to one team, to scouting one team and how they want to cover. And there's probably some things that they probably learned from game one about the coverages and stuff like that, both offense and defense. That should be, that should be like interesting for them to sort of figure out. I don't think there was anything that Memphis did just on observation that I'm thinking about. There isn't anything that Memphis did that like caught me off guard. Like I expected the
Mhm.
doubles to AD, I expected them to crowd LeBron, like the assignments, having Dylan Brooks on Braun, having, Xavier Tillman on AD, and then having Jaren come over and help. That all that stuff sort of made sense. Leaving Rui open even also wasn't a surprise. Like I would understand if they like wanted to leave him open to funnel shots to him, as long as like Braun doesn't shoot it or he's not the one just running the offense and stuff like that. So it's just like I was thinking a lot about like if there was like if I was an assistant coach for the Lakers and I was scouting Memphis, like you and I both, I mean, you certainly rewatch games significantly more than I do. I, at the very most, give it a single rewatch, and sometimes it's not the whole game. It's like just like the second half or whatever the most important. But like I remember, I was like watching all the possessions in the Memphis series that we had, and obviously it was a little bit
Mhm.
different because one game we won with like Russ and Dennis closing out the game, and then other games there's like Ja wasn't playing or whatever it
Yeah.
was. So it's very hard to pick stuff out. So like I tried to find as much as I could from the possessions defensively, like how did they always cover AD? Like, what was it the same coverage no matter who was on the floor? And so, like, after watching all that, I didn't see so much different from what we saw from them in the regular season. It's like tactically, it seemed like they were going with their regular season game plan to see if the Lakers could to score right with this new roster, and I think we did. And so that's why I think now the main adjustment probably for Memphis is going to be okay. These guys can actually shoot. We can't just leave them open. They have a little bit more skill on ball, scoring wise, and that sort of thing. So we have to respect it a little bit more. So that's why I keep thinking like game two, the game plan may not be that much more different. They just may be really locked in defensively.
Yeah, I thought, in that final game, I think without LeBron, right? We were playing well, but LeBron wasn't back yet, and it was like AD on the road. And I thought they single covered him a little bit more in that game. I think Lonnie Walker, remember, had a really great game in that one. Lonnie, who
Yeah.
not even close to the rotation right now, but like he had a really good game in that one. My question though, I think the one part as well, we saw a little bit of this. Do you like LeBron on Jaren Jackson? Do you like that as we're single covering that? Uh, Let me ask you first before I give my answer. But do you like LeBron on Jaren Jackson as that's what we're going to? Like we're putting AD on Tillman so he can kind of roam, and we're putting LeBron and Jaren Jackson to kind of match up physically. Do you like that as our defensive matchup?
Yeah, I don't mind it because Braun's defensive mobility is not at risk against Jaren Jackson the way it would be if he was like guarding somebody who's more perimeter, like a shiftier, craftier, perimeter oriented
Hmm.
guy. And so I'm okay with if Braun has to wrestle with Jaren Jackson to make sure Jaren Jackson doesn't get easy layups. I like that better for Braun because that's him not exert. That's like upper body. That's him like wrestling. That's jungle ball. That's the stuff that like that I'm okay with that. Um, I don't like AD, and this is a concern that you and I have both had, and it reared its head in that Minnesota game. AD cannot be guarding perimeter guys, even if they're 7 footers, because it really compromises the Lakers defense at
Yeah.
the rim. It's almost like as soon as he switches onto the perimeter, it's a green light for anybody else that has the ball on the opposing team's offense, no matter who we have on the floor, Vando or not, because there's just no backside protection at all. Like maybe if Rui's on the floor, then if he's in weak side mode, then maybe he can help. Like even Braun, like he's not going to try and block shots at the rim all the time, if
Hmm.
teams are doing that. So I like it in the sense that I think it's a calculated risk. That's the way I would describe it. It's a calculated risk. I trust Braun to be okay in that situation, in single coverage against him. And like honestly, like some of those shots that Jaren made were not easy shots. He just made them,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I can't really be mad at it. But if he misses one or two of those shots, those are wins, for those in those possessions for the Lakers. So I'm okay with it. Anything that keeps AD in the paint at all times or within vicinity of the rim at all times, I think pays very large dividends for us defensively. Like we saw Ja get turned away a couple times. Like Ja like changed his mind midair like a couple
Hmm.
times. because
he
AD
got
was
like
there.
a travel, yeah, on that.
Yeah. So
My thought process on that is like, number one, I like LeBron on someone he respects, like, like he has to be engaged in as well. Like on Dylan Brooks, he's just not gonna guard Dylan Brooks, and that's obviously the game plan. But uh there's a level of like being disinterested in them that like you still want to at least be in somewhat engaged. And number two, I think if Memphis's offense is to post up Jaren Jackson and have him dribble 5 times in the post against LeBron into a jump hook. Like I live with that, right? No one's getting in foul trouble. He's not playmaking out of that. No one's getting an open three. It's just him one-on-one against LeBron bruising. And LeBron's going to strip enough of those. AD's going to come over and help enough of those to where I live with that as like one-on-one single coverage, finish over, LeBron or finish over AD helping. Like I'm fine with that. I don't know if takes a bruising for LeBron over the series, but I don't think they go to Jackson in the post enough to where it would matter. But I thought that's where like Memphis got some easy buckets. But I was thinking like I live with that. If Jaren Jackson Jr. is gonna hit jump hooks over LeBron, like that's fine. Those are 2-point shots. No one's getting in foul trouble. You're not pressuring anywhere else. You're not breaking down the defense in any way to where we're gonna send a ton of help to. But yeah, that's my thing on that. I think that's sustainable as well. Keeps AD out of foul trouble. He's not on Jackson, and he can roam and blow up everything else to where, okay, give Jackson, he might drop 30 again. It's just like you kind of live with him doing that. I think he's going to pick and pop a little bit more too. I suspect he only took 4 threes in game one. I suspect that to go up, but yeah, I'm fine with that matchup too.
yeah, it's like, that if he's taking all the shots, obviously he's one of their best players. So if he's taking all the shots, that's one thing. But it's like he's also not getting anybody else involved like in the
Exactly.
process either. So it's just like, and then it's also a game script, right? Like if our starters do their job and they get us like an 8-9 point lead, and our bench unit is just trading buckets with them, and nobody's winning any of those minutes, and it's a straight zero, then we're still winning that game by 8 points. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that was like the whole thing with like for years. It was like first with Rondo, then it was with Russ. It was just like our benches can't keep losing leads, right? Like we have to preserve these leads or at least play them to a stalemate. And so that's the way I kind of think of it. Um, yeah, so I don't mind that too much. Maybe they'll put Rui on him a little bit more, but yeah, if it's Braun and AD, yeah, maybe they put Vando. I don't know. No, they probably won't. I think Braun is probably the easiest match. One thing I was gonna say is also this, because you mentioned it. Braun's level of disinterest in guarding Dylan Brooks. I think one of the things that you have to also consider is that when you leave a guy, and we've seen that like with Russ on the Clippers, like when they leave him open, you are also basically letting him do whatever he wants after the shot goes up, and
Exactly.
it hurts our ability to for a guy like Russ, and it can also happen with Dylan. Like they get offensive rebounds like as a result of it because they're already running to the spot where they think the ball is going. Whereas a guy like Braun may still be like watching where the ball is going before he actually moves his feet. So it's like stuff like that kind of makes a big difference too as well. And yeah, like keep Braun active, like he stays like engaged in the game. But I mean, I did you think like did he look? He didn't look like physically like there was any issue. It just seemed like he was very selective, just kind of picking his spots
Oh,
within the flow of the game, right?
Oh, 100%. I thought, he I think he remembers those, what was it? Footsteps, or we don't hear the footsteps, or whatever
Yeah,
Desmond Bain
nobody's
said.
afraid of the footsteps. Yeah, the
Yeah,
blocks.
he got like 3 blocks, I think. I think one of them was an insane, like he was like aiming down that Desmond Bain one from half court. I was like, "Are you really going to go for this?" And Desmond Bain went up and got it absolutely pinned to the backboard. That was more I saw LeBron chase more blocks than he did all season. I mean, in that
Yeah,
game. I
yeah,
mean, there was like
that's true.
all season there was just no, and maybe that's just his like that's just how he kind of steadied himself for the playoffs. But I thought his defense was actually really good. I thought he was engaged, and again on Jackson you can't be disengaged. And we were hiding D'Lo on Dylan Brooks, and I could tell Dylan Brooks just gradually kept feeling more disrespected by that matchup. Like like you could tell he's like, oh no, I need it, and you could just see it build up, and he finally just started putting shots up. I think it was like 4 for 15 or something like that. I don't remember what he shot, but yeah, I expect Dylan Brooks also to up his offensive load. That's probably a good thing for us for most of the games. I think one of the games he's going to hit just in terms of the volume. You throw enough up there, I think like some are going to go in for him. But We'll see if his bully ball works as well. He tried to take D'Lo to the basket. But I thought like our defensive game plan was solid. I think like we have a good kind of plan there. And if LeBron's engaged, AD's engaged, that leaves Jaren Vanderbilt to just wreak absolute havoc like he did in the Dallas game, like he did last night. He did, I think, in the Bulls game or something like that. That's just where Jaren Vanderbilt can really impact the game. And I think that's where you get, where it just becomes a landslide where like, I got to keep LeBron off. I got to keep 80 off the boards. I have to know where LeBron is. And now I have to also gravitate attention to Jaren Vanderbilt. And that's a lot of stuff for a team to take into account of. So, yeah, hopefully, this is a lot of positivity for a team going into a Memphis. Vinay is 35-6 at home this year, by the way. Best home record in the league, not Western Conference, in the whole league. Even with the injuries they have, they're a very good home team. So I expect desperation out of them tomorrow. I expect a first
absolutely.
punch. Yeah, that where you're gonna have to sustain. I expect them to come out with guns blazing, and we'll see if we can kind of keep up with that. And I'm sure. Is it still Fieldhouse? Is it FedEx Forum? I'm not sure.
I don't even know what they're. I don't know what they got, dude. Like, forget Memphis. Like, Miami's gone through like every year they have like a new sponsor. Like, I don't know if you've seen like
Okay.
the Heat Arena just got a new, because
Oh,
the
they did?
FTX that Bitcoin company or whatever it was, they went out of business. So, like, dude. And then I was watching the Minnesota game, the
Mhm.
second playing game, and they
Yeah.
have like 3 sponsors on their court, and I was just like, bro, what is going? Like, the whole floor is just covered with ads now at this point. And it's just NBA is crazy. We're turning into soccer with all the different logos, company logos. But I think the last thing I'll probably say about the game, or just to sum up like my thoughts, is like I thought one thing I've always believed when it comes to basketball is it's like no matter whether you're shooting well, whatever your role is, like everything has an incremental benefit to the entire team. So if you can't do anything at all, just find something to do. Rebound the ball, play defense, make a layup, cut, whatever, screen, whatever it's going to be. And I thought all of the role players, obviously the scoring was a big part of it with Rui, Austin, and D'Lo putting up points. But like there were so many small incremental things that everybody did within the function of the defense and the offense and stuff like that I thought just that's what really led to the win overall. Like I know Rui putting up 29 like was like and Austin closing out the game were like the 2 big things that came out of it.
Yeah.
But it honestly felt like a team win. Like everybody contributed in different ways, in very uncommon ways. Like it's just we knew AD was going to play great defensively, but like Braun having 3 blocks was like, whoa, like just like you said, we haven't seen him do that in a while. So it's like it genuinely felt like a team win. And I hope they keep that mentality. I agree with you. I think Memphis is going to come out more desperate. We've seen this exact team without Ja blow out the Warriors by like 50 at home before. So they're a very deadly team with or without Ja, just deadly in a different way. Same way when we talked about Minnesota. When they lost Rudy and Jaden, we said they're still a good team in a different
Yeah.
way. So the Lakers can't take them lightly. So I think they will definitely be in a battle. They'll definitely duke it out with the Lakers. And the Lakers can't take it lightly. They have to be prepared for it. And that starts with our stars taking it seriously. And then, it travels down to rollers. But that idea, that mindset of incremental wins, win it possession by possession, quarter by quarter, shift by shift, and then win the game at the end of it. Like it's not how we start the game, it's how we finish it and what the end result is. And I think as long as they keep that mentality, I think the stuff that we saw tactically from Ham, the stuff that we saw effort wise, skill wise, performance wise from our other guys, both up and down, I think was good. And I just hope they continue to do that because, like if Ja doesn't play tomorrow, they're still a tough team, but this is a really great opportunity to make this a short series. And again, give more
Yeah.
rest to AD and LeBron, give them more opportunity to scout. Because I'll tell you right now, you and I have both watched that Kings Warriors series. That game is going to be ridiculous defensively because both those teams are playing as fast as hell. So
Mhm.
it's going to be a very different series if we win this series and we move on to the next round. So it's just like, and if it is the Kings play at a pace like I've never seen a team in a long, long time play at the speed that team plays at. And the Lakers are going to that's going to be a very important, tough series. But without looking ahead, these small incremental things will go a long way for us. So, I'm just looking forward to that tomorrow.
So I remember again, this was in the bubble, but I remember we were up like 2-1 on the Blazers in the first round. And then game 3, LeBron went nuts. Like he kind of smelled blood, right? And that was our first like playoff LeBron experience in a Laker uniform. But I thought he like smelled blood in the water. And I wonder if tomorrow if they go through with that type of mindset. I think Memphis is gonna come out, throw the first punch. I think we're gonna be down like 10 very early. But if you can chip away. I thought we saw that in the Suns Clippers game today. By the way, you could tell the Suns were tight, right? Down 0-1, all pressure's on the home team. Like you got to win that, or your season's kind of it's not done. But usually, I think the Clippers beat the Mavericks when they lost the first 2 home games. They won in 7. The Mavs blew like a 3-1 lead, I think, in that series. But usually, you lose your first 2 home games, you're kind of done. And I think you're going to see that desperation. But with no John Morant, there's a level that the Grizzlies can get to in terms of their ceiling, right? The floor, I think, is still there. That's what we were talking about. They still have a floor that's pretty good. They have a bunch of NBA level players that are still going to play high level. They're coached really well. Forgot what the coach's name at the moment.
Taylor Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins, yes. He has them coached up really well, but there's like a floor, there's a ceiling that they can get to that our team healthy can just pass that if we're playing the right way, if we execute and if we're locked in and don't, take game 1 for granted. So yeah, I'm super excited to see if that like blood in the water comes out. I thought LeBron kind of smelled it a little bit in game 1. We were up like 5. He's like, let me really put something in it with that 3 you were talking about from D'Lo, kind of cross court pass to LeBron for the 3 right there. That kind of put us up 7 or 8 with like 5 minutes left. But yeah, I'm hoping that's what we see tomorrow. But yeah, this Memphis team to me not to be taken lightly. Solid basketball team. It's a long, long series.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they can kind of go up 2-0, win the first 2 road games here.
Yeah, we got to keep it. We got to keep these games ugly as possible. The ugly basketball is what wins in the playoffs, man. Like I don't know how else to describe it. Like that game 1 at one point was like an ugly basketball game. Like we were scrapping for everything. AD was like getting into the mess of it. Like that's how you win basketball games. And Memphis is a team that's going to make the game ugly before that game is over. If they're going to lose that game. So Lakers got to come with that, and they're going to make it even uglier. I think game 2. That's going to be their goal. So I think Lakers got to match that aggression or withstand that first punch that they throw, and then just keep playing their game and making incremental wins. So that's great. So Raj, this was another great episode. We covered a lot of stuff, the Draymond stuff. We talked about the Sun series, just different stuff, adjustments that the Lakers can make, Memphis can make. Things that we saw, that we liked, that we disliked, that might have to be concerned about in game 2. But game 2 is coming up, and we're going to find out how seriously the Lakers take it. So I'll be very interested to see how it goes. Obviously we're hoping that we don't want Ja to be injured. Nobody wants to win with other players. So hopefully he can play. And if he does play, I don't know what his hand is going to look like. But I'm glad to hear that there's nothing broken or fractured or anything like that. So that's cool to see.
I feel like he's gonna play. It just feels like, I mean, he's still questionable now. It just feels like, plus not only do I want him to play just because his health, I think it keeps us in our base coverage as well. We can still, play off. And I think like Tyus Jones obviously isn't the caliber of player that John Moran is. It switches up how you have to defend. And that kind of, we have something that's working. We have 2 guys that we really allowed to shoot. And then obviously Xavier Tillman's not even involved for them. It's not like they're better without John Moran. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like it kind of keeps a consistency to the series, and you never know how teams react when they lose their stars. Some people, they just go crazy, and there's that Ewing theory. Have you heard of that? Where like when the star player goes out, the other team actually steps up in a way, and they take a win. So I hope Ja plays tomorrow. Hopefully his hand's okay. And just speaking on injuries really quick, a side note, did you see that Sabonis has a
sternum contusion? Yeah, chest
contusion.
And it's usually what happens when you do WWE moves on human bodies.
Oh man, this league.
Those guys are trained professionals that do it in the ring, and they know how to kind of pull their punches. And bro, it's just, I have that pic. I tweeted out the picture like of this of that, just the picture of Draymond like gearing up or winding up his stomp on him, and it's just like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you have to know that like they're going to see this. And the reason why I knew like he was just being stupid, like Draymond was just being dumb about it, was because how they called that foul on him earlier that they had to challenge, where he like bumped Sabonis out of bounds and
Oh,
then they
yes,
called
yes,
him for a
yes,
personal
yeah.
foul, and that
They actually
wasn't a
won that.
foul. Yeah, they
Yeah, they
won
won
that
the
challenge.
challenge.
It's like even I thought I was just like, dude, this is not a foul on Draymond. Like he's just backing up. He doesn't know Sabonis is behind him like that. Sabonis kind of flopped, and Sabonis probably flopped a little bit when he fell down to the ground prior to grabbing his leg or whatever. But it's just like Draymond's just like, bro, you have to know you can't do that. Like you have to know who you are. Like it's just I don't know how to explain. I mean, I get it. Like whenever I played like not pickup, but like when I used to play like in leagues, like city leagues and stuff like that, like I used to get hard fouled sometimes, and like it's very hard not to react in a certain way and to like keep composure. But it's like, dude, you're a professional. Like you have to be smarter than that. But
I
it is what it
I
is.
I I guess how they see I'm not defending Draymond in any way. I just don't like you don't get the defensive player of the year, undersized forward without that, right? Like that's
Yeah,
part of the package. I'm not defending it, the action of it. I'm
I
just
get it. I
like,
get it. Yeah,
that's you know what I mean? Like that's who Draymond is. Like that's the package of it. You don't get the I'm defending every 7 footer and they can't score on me. I can be the head of a defense at six. What is he? 6'7", 6'8"? I don't know his exact height, but whatever.
Draymond.
Like
Draymond. I think he's like 6'9". He's
6'9".
bronze height.
Okay,
Yeah, if I'm not
Bronson.
mistaken.
Okay, but like still an undersized forward, right? A small ball center for them. That's been a huge part of their defense for a long time. You don't get that ruggedness and toughness, whatever he sells to Golden State. As the mantra for their team, the heart or whatever they want to call him. I don't think you get that without the craziness, which is sometimes toes the line between psychotic and passion. Like
Look,
it's
man,
a
I, I,
it's
I
a
come
thin line.
Yeah, I come from an era where Dennis Rodman was like kicking photographers and stuff like that. So it's like that kind of like I don't have an issue with the behavior. It's just like my thing is just like, bro, don't do it to a player like right in the middle of a game in front of the refs. Like be a little like if you're gonna throw a nasty elbow, like do it when the refs aren't looking at you or something like that. Like you're doing it like in plain sight, and then you're like, oh, why am I getting kicked out of the game for this? Like
Not
it
just
just
not just that, you do it so you could cost your team 2 games, like in a playoff series, right? You get game 2, it's a tight game. They're actually making a run. I think they cut it to like 3 or 4. Steph has it going. Like he's like into the basket, he's getting to the rim. He's starting to feel it like, "Oh, I'm going to take this over." And Draymond decides to just absolutely end any chance of that cuz he stomps on Domantas Sabonis, and now you're suspended. Like that's 2 games where your impact can be marginalized by just you having no self control. So yeah,
yeah.
we'll see what happens in that series. But I thought
So
that
we'll
was funny
see.
that not funny, but interesting that Domantas Sabonis comes out with a rib contusion right after the suspension is announced.
Yeah,
Very very interesting
very
timing.
timely, very timely. Yeah, but
I'm
look,
sure though.
this series is aside from the entertainment value of the Kings Warrior
Mhm.
series, like I'm watching it because that's one of these teams. If we make it to the next round, is who we're going to be playing in the next round. So it's like I'm watching Malik Monk do 360 get cross up Kaminga into a
Oh
360
man.
spin jumper, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy is going crazy right now. He didn't put up 30, but he put up like 20 or something like that, I think, for them.
Dude, people were like, Malik Monk's not going to score 30 again. Have you watched Malik Monk this year? Like, have you watched the Kings at all? I know they aren't on national TV at all because of NBA probably didn't think they were going to be. I mean, they could have added him a few times, but yeah, Malik Monk, that's what he does. Like, he comes in and just gets straight buckets in terms of like step back three, gets to the basket, gets to the line. That's not something that's unsustainable from him. That's not like out of the picture. So yeah, that's what he does. Yeah, and Fox has been hitting pull up. People are like, yeah, they're giving Fox that mid range jump shot. I'm like, dude, that's what. How do you think they've won all these games? Like, this is what Fox does at the end of the fourth quarter. Is like, he goes and gets his mid range pull up, and they're wet. Like, don't even touch the rim. And Kevin Herter obviously does what he does, and Sabonis is kind of struggling in the series. We'll see if he opens up without Draymond, but this is who the Kings are, and I'm surprised how many people are finding out now. As the playoffs start. But yeah, it's a fun series. We'll see.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, and we'll be watching that series as well. Both you and I are basketball junkies, so any series that actually have competitive basketball, we're probably going to end up watching them and trying to pick stuff from them. Whether the Lakers play them or not. So, as always, Raj, this has been an awesome episode of Lakers Detailed.
Yeah.
I'll be very curious to see what our adjustments and performances in Game 2 And there's a lot more basketball, even outside of the Lakers, that's going on. That's very entertaining, worth watching, especially with the Draymond news and stuff I got coming out. So, as always, I appreciate you taking time to chat about your thoughts about Lakers basketball. And more than you and I, we appreciate all the folks that jump in on the
Yeah.
live streams on YouTube and jump in on the spaces to listen to us blather on about Lakers basketball. So I appreciate, we appreciate everybody that likes to listen in with us and discuss the game, whether it's a like, a share, a subscribe, hey, that was a nice podcast, a compliment, whatever it is. It goes a very, very long way, no matter what. And if nothing else, we appreciate you, and hope you guys have a good evening or the rest of the day whenever you guys end up listening to this. So we'll catch you in the next one. We'll see you then.
Peace.